And it is an honor to be here today with Sonnet Daymont.
She's considered an expert in trauma, according to multiple international news organizations, podcasts, and online journals.
She went on to serve as a counselor in the first U.S. safe house for child sex trafficking survivors, and later became a passionate advocate for child protection reform.
So joining us now to put all of this into context for us is trauma and marriage family therapist Sonnet Daymont. Sonnet, thank you so much for being with us. But from a therapist's eyes, how do you see this trial?
If you look at domestic violence, there's typically like a pattern of behavior that happens where there's a Jekyll and Hyde kindness that happens, and then abuse that happens back and forth. And it can feel really addictive when you're in a relationship like that. You're constantly seeking things to get to that good place again for the person who's taking the brunt of the abuse, right? And then for the person who's abusing, there's also an element of like pain and distress that happens, but they're not risking they're not going to die.
I'm working as a therapist. What I think about in terms of defining whether or not something is a trauma or not is the impact on how it makes a person feel about themselves and how you can use that for empowerment, right? And if you experience something and it makes you feel bad about yourself and it shifts the way you interface with the world or the shaping of your thoughts, and then that's a trauma.
What I'm seeing is an example of two really wounded people. And with the situation with Cassie, I mean, it sounds like this was a 19-year-old girl who fell in love with a 37-year-old man. It's like close to 20 years difference. They met in the late 90s, early 2000s, is my understanding. And she was with him for a very long time. So you think about like coercive control. A young girl, I'm sure all of us know people that are about 19, 18 years old, where they're at psychologically. And we know men that are in their 40s where they're at psychologically.
Pretty often. And, are there statistics around how common childhood trauma is?
I believe that there are statistics, but I don't know how accurate they would be able to be. My understanding is like right now in California, and I think in Utah, some states are starting to take like ACE scores, adverse childhood experiences scores, when children go to the pediatrician. There's a little bit of tracking in terms of like how many CPS reports land in each state, but the states don't interface with each other in any sort of nationalized database type of way. Like there's not any real monitoring of child abuse or child sex trafficking from one state to another. If a child is reported to have been abused by their parents in one state and the family's wealthy enough to move to another state, investigation's gone. Same with sex trafficking. If a child is reported to be at risk of sex trafficking in one state, they move to another state, no one's investigating it because there's no nationalized database.
As of today, the last day of the month is officially Farm Workers Day. The change coming after a lengthy New York Times investigation in which several women brought up allegations of sexual assault by labor leader Cesar Chavez. This includes prominent civil rights activist Dolores Huerta, who spoke up about giving birth to 2 children after she says Chavez raped her. Cities across the state are now changing the names of elementary schools, streets, and parks named after the late leader.
When we deal with people who abuse power in different ways, we're supposed to address it. And there's integrity in saying that assault and treating women badly is not okay.
And if you're finding yourself in that same pattern over and over again, it's not victim shaming or anything to look at yourself and say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? My friend over here hasn't had 4 of these guys.
That's hard. And I think that's a good example of something to look for in a relationship with someone who's not healthy for you at the very least, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that that's a beautiful example. That's really clear. I think that will help a lot of people because I hear that often. It's also like shining light on this idea of like kindness. Like, is kindness consistent?
Relationships. What is your advice for the children that had endured that or experienced that when they were younger, as they enter into their own intimate relationships? How can they separate what they experienced as a child with what they are about to experience as an adult?
Going out there and being curious about what does healthy love look like. what does healthy love look like, and how do I start learning about that? What are examples of good role models, and how do they organize things? There's all that Gottman research that's really, really helpful. And, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Love is like a organism, you know, like as we love someone, we grow and change. And then together, what we have together grows and changes. And intimacy is built up in all kinds of different ways, and conflict is one of them. And so if you can just stay curious, right, and hold that empathy, and if you get dysregulated or really overwhelmed by your own trauma, go do some work on your own trauma so you can have access to post-traumatic growth, and you get the wisdom and the leadership skills and working. But I do think shame is beneficial. I think if we have no shame, that's not safe for society. We need to be able to check ourselves and know, like, hey, are we hurting people? Does this feel wrong for some reason?
That totally makes sense. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but sort of is the trauma connection to the shame making you feel bad about yourself because you haven't been able to bring everything in together accurately, hold it as an adult, relax into it, learn to trust yourself and feel powerful and correct how you feel about yourself as a result of surviving some hard things. That type of shame is not helpful for you or society, really.
Are affected here. Like, what is the path forward if somebody's been impacted by something like this?
So the path forward would be different for everyone involved, right? Because there's the vicarious trauma of the people around. There's us just watching this, a sociological trauma of the reality that women are treated like this all the time. It's totally normalized. You look at what was in the media when these two met, started dating, the types of films, documentaries that were popular, Pimps Up, Hose Down, all of that, right? And then we come into the present, we're here how many years later? Like 20, 25, post-Me Too movement. This is a very different reality than when these two met. And we're all trying to make sense of where we're at today and as a social group, right, as a community, as people. And then individually, when you've lived through these traumas and you see this, you get re-triggered by your own experiences and memories. And it's a lot of healing that needs to take place. Hopefully, both of these people and everyone around them find some type of post-traumatic growth. They go in there and they do the work to heal. And as a society, we look at this. We look at a pregnant woman, an African-American pregnant woman, 8 months pregnant, on the stand talking about this. Like, this is a real risk to her. She's being very brave, trying to help everyone, right? Help women in general. I hope something changes for us.
It sure does, and I'm glad you brought up the historical perspective, because we are living in a very different time, and sometimes it takes a while to see that, but really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. And we've talked about